I'm Safety and Security Supervisor in Cosmo, South Africa. So this one night, a new security guard was added to the team around 1:20 in the morning. I went to check up on him to see if he's okay. He says everything is all well, and that African Mama is such an amazing woman. Does she work here? I looked stunned, and I said, it's only two of us here. What are you talking about? As I rushed to check, there was nothing. That's when I realized it was a ghost. This happened to me on June 9th, 2021. The security never returned back to the site. He was afraid he had an encounter with ghosts.
When I was a little kid in the Philippines, we used to have a small space for laundry outside our kitchen. And the only one very dim light to use when it's night. One night my parents scolded me because of my young uncle told me to go look for him to be home because it was late. He was playing outside with our neighbors. So there I was looking for him in the street, in the spare room, kitchen, garage, asked him from our neighbors. And a random thought of mine was telling me to look for him behind the washing machine. As I ran towards it, a small face like a kid with hairy skin and red eyes jumped towards me. Face to face, I got stunned for a second, but I felt like mints. And I felt a really sharp sting behind my back, and my brain told me to run. So I ran so fast and jumped on my grandparents' bed. They were so shocked, thinking maybe I was just playing. But that night I couldn't even talk or tell them about it. And years passed, we renovated this house and forgot about it as I grew older. But one afternoon, like an hour before it got dark, our construction worker told us that who was the little kid sitting near our kitchen. And we told him there was no kid living with us. And our worker got pale. He told us that maybe there's a spirit of a kid staying there. And we awkwardly laughed it off because maybe he's just homesick. And a month went by and our house was finished. Then we blessed it with a priest and prepared a small feast. Weirdly enough, an old lady who turned out to be the last owner of her house had a friend who died there in the same spot on our laundry room. She told us that the little girl drowned due to an accident near a well behind the house. that gave me chills enough to sleep with lights on.
Last week, I moved into a new place, an old house at the edge of town. It's quiet and a bit run down, but I don't mind. It felt like a fresh start. The first few nights were normal until I noticed something odd. I'd be lying in bed, and just as I was about to fall asleep, I'd get this strange feeling that someone was watching me. At first, I thought it was just nerves, but then I started hearing faint tapping on my window. It's on the second floor, so I figured it had to be a tree branch or something. But when I looked out, there was nothing there. The tapping kept happening every night, always around the same time. A few nights ago, I decided to keep my phone raised. When I heard the tapping again, I quickly snapped the photo through the glass. My heart stopped when I looked at it. There was a faint reflection of a face staring back at me, pale with hollow eyes. I haven't slept well since. I've tried convincing myself it was just a trick of the light, but I can't shake the feeling that someone is out there, waiting. Has anyone else experienced something like this? I'm not sure how much longer I can take it. Everything I'm about to tell you is 100% true and not embellished in any way. I grew up in the Los Angeles County area a minute down the street from the cemetery. I lived in this house ever since I can remember until I was 11. When I was 7, I started noticing things like feeling watched and things getting misplaced in weird places. When I was 8, I was in the 4th grade, and I was sitting on our family room couch doing homework with my head down. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a girl standing in the kitchen. I looked up thinking it was my younger sister. It wasn't. This girl looked like she came from the ring. Long, black hair, messy and covering her face partially. Dirty white dress, no shoes, gray skin. my heart started pounding, and I tried to go back to doing my homework as soon as I turned my head back down. I felt my body getting so hot, and then I felt her weight. She was sitting on my shoulders with her legs crossed on my chest, and I could feel her burning me. I dropped everything and ran up the stairs screaming and crying. My mom believed me, but she didn't know what to do. My older sister and a friend were in the front yard chatting. And when they came down, they heard me screaming. I heard my sister's friend yell, "There's something on the stairs." And we went back to her car and waited. I had no idea what she saw on the stairs. I can only guess. Fast forward maybe a year later, my friends were hanging out while I was playing Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS2. The good old days. At this point, things in my house were pretty fucked up. It was a great recession, and my family was really affected. Rather than try to keep taking care of their family, my parents started using drugs and were pretty absent. It was just me and my sister against it all. Anyways, we were playing PS2, chilling, having a good time, in the same room as the girl sat on me. I paused the game to get snacks from the kitchen. When I looked up from the kitchen, I saw the TV screen. The game was unpaused, and my character, Sora, was walking around. I busted out of the kitchen, thinking one of my sisters was playing my save file. But they were just sitting there, staring at the controller, and the controller was moving itself. Now is a good time to mention that my older sister is a medium, and has been since she was young. I asked her what she could see, and she said she didn't see anything, and something was obviously playing on the TV. So I go to reach of the controller, and it immediately flies across the room, like it was thin. We stood there, jaws dropped, and just stared at each other for a while. Eventually I got the controller and closed the game, and we went to hang out in our rooms after that. This was just the beginning of my home series. Let me know if you want anything more. There was a time that I played with a Ouija board, and I'd love to share that. Jenny had always been afraid of the dark. She had lost her sight at a young age, and the world had always been a scary place for her. But she had learned to cope, and she had always felt safe as long as she was with her husband. He was her rock, her guide, and she trusted him with all her heart. So when he went away on a business trip, leaving her alone in her house, Jenny was terrified. She had never been alone before, and the thought of it filled her with dread. But she knew that she had reached her own. She was a grown woman, and she couldn't let her fears get the best of her. So when she went about her day, doing all the things she normally did, she cooked meals, cleaned the house, and listened to her audiobooks. And every night when she went to bed, she cuddled up next to her husband's pillow, pretending that he was there with her. It was a strange and unsettling routine, but it gave Jenny comfort. She knew that she was safe, and that was all that mattered. But one night, as she lay in bed, something changed. Jenny felt a presence in the room, a sense of unease that she couldn't shake. She tried to ignore it, telling herself that it was just her imagination. But as the minutes ticked by, the feeling grew stronger. Jenny couldn't take it anymore. She reached out and touched her husband's pillow, hoping to feel his familiar warmth. But instead of the soft cotton she expected, she felt something cold and clammy. She recoiled in horror, her heart racing as she realized that she wasn't alone. There was something in the room with her, something evil and malevolent. She could feel his presence, his breath on her neck, and she knew that she had to get out. She scrambled out of bed and ran for the door, her hands outstretched as she tried to find her way. She could hear the thing behind her, its footsteps pounding the floor as it followed her. She stumbled and fell, her hands scraping the floor as she tried to crawl away. She could feel the thing closing in, its hot breath on her neck as it prepared to strike. Just when she thought it was all over, she heard the voice in the darkness. It was her husband, his voice full of concern as he called out to her. Jenny's heart soared with hope. She struggled to her feet and ran towards the sound of his voice, his hands outstretched as she tried to find him. But as she grew closer, she realized that something was wrong. The voice was different, deeper, and more sinister. It was the monster, mimicking her husband's voice in order to lure her in. Jenny froze in terror, her mind racing as she tried to think the way out. She couldn't let the monster win, not after everything she had been through. She turned and ran, her feet pounding the floor as she fought to escape. She could hear the monster behind her, his footsteps growing louder and louder as it closed in. She didn't know how much longer she could keep running, but she knew that she had to try. She had to survive, no matter what. But it was too late. The monster was too fast, and before Jenny knew what was happening, it was on top of her. She screamed as it tore into her flesh, the razor-sharp claws slicing through her skin. She fought with all her might, but it was no use. The monster was too strong, and Jenny knew that she was doomed. She closed her eyes, accepting her fate as the monster's claws dug into her flesh. The lighthouse stood tall on a small island, surrounded by the inland ocean. 3 lighthouse keepers, Jack, Tim, and Ryan, were stationed there, their only company being the sound of the waves and the occasional passing ship. For months, the 3 of them lived together peacefully, taking turns watching the ocean and maintaining the lighthouse. But one night, Jack woke up to a blood-curdling scream. He rushed to Tom's room, only to find him lying on the floor in a pool of blood. His throat slit open. Ryan was nowhere to be found. Jack searched the lighthouse for any sign of him, but he was gone. Jack felt his stomach drop as he realized the horrifying truth. There was a murder among them. The Coast Guard was notified and soon arrived on the island to investigate. Jack was questioned repeatedly, but he could provide no clue as to what had happened to his colleagues. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there, lurking in the shadows. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation stalled. Jack was the only lighthouse keeper left, and he began. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation stalled. Jack was the only lighthouse keeper left, and he began to feel the weight of loneliness and isolation. But he also felt a sense of paranoia, as if someone was watching him from the darkness. One night, Jack heard a strange sound coming from the island. It was a low, guttural drawl that seemed to be coming from all around him. The sound was so intense that it shook the entire lighthouse, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that it was driving him mad. The next morning, Jack woke up to the sound of footsteps. He cautiously opened the door and saw Ryan standing there, a wild look in his eyes. Ryan was covered in blood, and Jack realized that he was a murderer all along. In a panic, Jack tried to turn, but Ryan caught him and attacked him with a knife. Jack managed to overpower Ryan and kill him in self-defense. But the damage was already been done. Jack had been driven mad by the sound of the island. Years later, Jack was found wandering the streets, muttering to himself about the sound on the island. He was taken to a mental asylum, where he spent the rest of his days. The island remained deserted, and the sound on the island continued to haunt Jack even in his dreams. In the end, it was revealed that Jack had been the murderer all along. The sound on the island had driven him to madness, causing him to snap and turn on his colleagues. It was a tragedy that would never be fully understood, a reminder of the dangers of isolation and the terrifying power of the mind. Last year in August, I was home alone and wasn't at school due to summer vacation. My parents were on a business trip. It was around 11 p.m. and I was enjoying a match of Call of Duty. I had my headset on for a short period of time until it was making my head hurt. The moment I took it off, I heard a loud bang. I immediately was terrified, but I needed to convince myself that I was fine, and it was just the AC. But I heard it again, and I called my parents and told them about this. They checked the security cameras but didn't see anything, so I was relieved. I hung up and continued my match. Then another bang. I realized it was coming from the basement, but my parents called me back. I quickly answered. We have a house on fire. And they told me to call 911. They heard another click right after I hung up. Kim and Pete had been wanting a child for a long time. When Kim finally got pregnant, they went to a cliff nearby, which provided a beautiful view, ideal for a celebration. When their child was born, they expected a beautiful baby, taking after its parents. But instead, they had the ugliest child they could imagine. Instead of accepting the child they had waited so long for, they went and threw the baby off the cliff in disgust. A few years later, Kim gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. So beautiful, it was as though she was heaven sent. When she was about 4 years old, her parents decided to take her to the cliff. She appreciated the beautiful view it provided. When they got to the spot where they had thrown their previous child off, their daughter started screaming. She turned to her mother in the midst of her just and wailed, "Mommy, I'm beautiful. Please don't throw me off again." My name is Ben. I'm a broke college student who dumpster dives every once in a while. I'd found some pretty good stuff in there, like a PlayStation 4 in decent condition, phones, books, and school supplies. It's crazy how much privileged people just throw away. A few days ago, I found a 30-inch LED TV in pristine condition. I was ecstatic. I had a TV in my rented apartment, but it was an old-fashioned one. I went inside my 4 rooms. It had a bathroom, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a living room apartment. I installed the TV in my living room at 12 a.m. and turned it on. It had a black wallpaper, some basic pre-installed apps, and a resolution of 2560 by 1440 feet.
I installed the TV in my living room at 12 a.m. and turned it on. It had black wallpaper, some basic apps pre-installed, and a resolution of 2560 by 1442. I logged into my friend's Netflix account and started watching. When the clock struck 1 a.m., the screen started distorting and flashing slightly. Then by the time 1:10 rolled around, the show I was watching was now barely invisible. Then it turned off. I thought to myself that maybe this was the reason the owner threw the TV away. I sighed and went back to bed, but woke up to the sound of the TV turning on. I groggily walked into the living room and saw the show on the TV was playing. It was a guy dancing alone on a hill, holding a toy doll. He looked happy. As I went close to switch it off, the man looked at me and whispered, "Do you miss the show?" I was puzzled. I pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Then he started dancing again. I pulled the plug out, and he looked at me with a frown. The music grew distorted, and glorious sounds of children and women screaming filled the room. But it was coming out of the TV rather than it came out of the bedroom. I freaked out, grabbed the remote control, and changed the channel. The next channel streamed a cooking show. The voices stopped. I took a deep breath and sat down. Not a minute later, I saw the chef boiling a human child in a glass container. I watched as its skin peeled off slowly, its cries fading away. I was horrified, and quite frankly, wet myself. I then heard the kitchen door open. The chef was standing right there, literally 10 feet away from me, holding the child. I got up and booked it out of my house. It chased me down the street. The streets were surprisingly empty. I ran for what seemed like eternity. I suddenly stumbled into a man. His face wasn't visible. I asked him to help me. He grabbed my hand with a light grip and stood face to face with me. It was the dancing man. A grin plastered across his face. My legs started moving. I was dancing. I wanted to cry, but a permanent smile had formed on my face. So if you see a 6-foot brunette, brown-eyed Indian boy dancing when you watch your TV, I'm really sorry for passing the curse on to you.
Thank you for listening to these scary stories from Reddit. Feel free to check out the other ones that are on this playlist. Leave a like and subscribe on your way out, and enjoy the rest of your time in the night.